Hi everyone, my name is Stephanie Marks, and the development stage that I chose was adolescence. So adolescence, it's a stage that starts with the onset of puberty and doesn't end till the transition to adulthood, which really there kind of isn't no age that this stage ends. As emerging adults, you kind of become adult at different times in your life. So legally 18, but it could be later than that. It also starts between ages 9 and 13, males usually 1 to 2 years later than females when it comes to the start of puberty. For different development, so physical development, obviously there's a lot of growth in this stage, a lot of physical changes. They have growth spurts in which they usually have a really tall growth spurt. They also have a lot of brain growth that continues to the early 20s. The brain becomes more interconnected and efficient. One thing to remember is that their limbic development, so the thing that releases different hormones, is developing faster than their prefrontal cortex. So that means they have really high emotions without great decision making or reason. You also have the development of sex characteristics, both primary and secondary. Things to remember are the social expectations that come with this regarding changes in bodies, such as dating, bullying that can occur if someone is a late bloomer, or, popularity that can occur if someone is an early bloomer and is, really athletic or good at sports. It can all lead to different social things. Also, when it comes to sleep, adolescents need 8 to 10 hours, and only 9% of students are getting that. The developing brain also pushes back against the circadian rhythm, making it harder for students to go to bed early and to function at an early hour, so school time. You also have a lot of different more freedoms in eating and diet, so that we can see the onset of different body image issues and self-esteem issues, eating disorders, all these different mental health related things that can pop up that all are important to remember as teachers. For social and emotional development, this is kind of when people are asking, who am I? What do I want to be? There are theorists, Erik Erikson, which there are different crises to overcome at each stage. James Marcia, which is that there are many different routes to identity. The really big social emotional development during this time is just self. You have different identities that influence what a person, how they see themselves, how they identify, as listed here. And these can all cause lots of issues for students as they are trying to really figure out who they are as people. So there are it's a very confusing time, and they're trying on many different hats to figure out who they are. For cognitive development, this is when people or students are developing the ability for abstract thought. They consider multiple points of view, hypothetical situations, form new ideas, empathy. They also get a greater dopamine release, and they're kind of seeking that pleasure in their brains, and they're doing that, they're chasing that kind of that dopamine release without thinking of different consequences. So once again, that limbic system developing before that reason is developing. Different cognitive theorists are listed below, and you have them kind of debating if there are stages that people go through or if they can jump through everything. You have Morality and Morality of Care by Carol Gilligan, which is something good to remember for teachers, to make sure that if students are conventional caring, that's stage 2, to make sure not to reward that to the point where they neglect their self. You also have adolescence as a big time of transitions and social expectations, and those are different for every culture. So to keep that in mind as teachers when these students are developing. For language development, may not be profound as earlier stages where have infants learning to talk and things like that, but you do have development in this stage. We have a greater vocabulary as people are introduced to new words and they're surrounded by new words. Syntax and grammar development. A big thing is the increased social language skills, such as being able to have conversations, debate, being able to be persuasive, and things like that. Also, identity and linguistic style go hand in hand. You have different cultural language styles, multilingual, bilingual speakers, and you have peer influence and slang as well. So all of this is going into their language, is kind of also feeding into who they are and their identity as a person. So different developmental issues during this stage. A lot of mental health issues arise during this stage. If something, some sort of chemical isn't being released correctly, or we have a lot of different self-esteem issues that kind of lead to different mental health issues. There's different drug use and experimentation that can happen that can stunt that brain development in this time, especially as these adolescents get more freedom and they choose to indulge in drug experimentation, something like that. There's also diet culture and eating disorders that pop up during this time with more freedom in food choice. You see eating disorders pop up with different self-confidence issues, self-esteem issues. There's also discrimination against culture, religions, gender, and sexuality that all pop up during this time as these adolescents are, being able to have greater thoughts, and they can kind of see this discrimination occurring. So important things that teachers should know. Brains are growing. Like I said, the limbic system is developed before the prefrontal cortex, driven by emotions. There's no reason. So, sometimes you're like, why would you ever do that in the classroom? Remember, they're doing it to chase that dopamine release. Their brains are pushing against the circadian rhythm. It's harder for these adolescents to get more sleep and be ready to function, at 7 a.m. when they walk into class. These adolescents are just starting to be able to think abstractly. They're new at this. This is something they don't know really how to do yet. So as teachers, to be patient with them. We forget that they're still kids, even though they're, teenagers, they're emerging adults. They're still kids. Different peer influence things. Late bloomers can be bullied, and to keep that in mind, or early developers are praised for their great athletic ability, or females, if they're early developers, are self-conscious because their primary sex characteristics are coming in and their bodies are changing, and, boys are making fun of them, or girls, or it is something to keep in mind as a teacher. It affects student self-esteem and their development of identity. You also have this egocentrism that comes up, and they're always thinking about themselves, and they're always thinking that other people are thinking about them. So, people are whispering in the corner, oh my gosh, they have to be whispering about me, which can cause a lot of self-esteem issues and can lead to struggling in the classroom. Other things to remember, conventional caring, that's stage 2 that Carol Gilligan talks about, can be seen great in a classroom. But if we only reward this, students can have their own identity neglected. We want to push them to that integrated caring, that's stage 3. So caring for everyone, including yourself. There are also many forms of abuse that children can go through during this time. And a lot of it is reported by professionals such as teachers. So being aware of that, looking for signs of that, remembering that mandated reporting, every teacher is a mandated reporter, and to make sure that these children are receiving help if needed, if any of this occurs. Also that they're still developing. They are not adults yet. They are just learning to think, hypothetically and have critical thinking skills. So helping them develop that and being patient with that as they are still learning, and to remember that even if they're young adults, they're not fully developed. Their brain is not fully developed yet. So being patient with that. And then here are some resources that I used in this presentation. Thank you.